I'm Ruth Dooling, CEO of Girard Medical Center. As we commemorate the 100th birthday of our hospital, we thought it would be a good idea to share some of our history. In May of 1916, a group of community-minded leaders of Girard recognized the need for high-quality medical care close to home. They circulated petitions in an effort to obtain a hospital for Girard. Their efforts succeeded, and in May of 1916, the newly selected Hospital Board of Trustees purchased the site where the sports complex stands today. In July 1918, the new hospital opened. Although the building is no longer there, many rich memories remain.
Tell you, when I first started, the administrator was an RN. Otherwise, all aides. They seemed to do a good job. They kept the place open anyway. But I worked the evening shift, and I kind of went back and forth from one shift to the other, eventually.
And that was at the old hospital that stood where the tennis courts are now.
You went down to the emergency room in the basement and up to OB, and we just flew up those stairs. And they had quite a few patients. It's amazing.
I worked 37 years altogether.
Mm-hmm. So Marge, you worked at the old hospital and at the new hospital. So are you familiar with that picture that there is? There's a whole employees all on the steps of the old hospital, and I think you're in that picture. I think you're in it too.
I don't know if I'm in it, but I started at the old hospital in 63, the fall of 63.
I was 61.
And I probably started 60 or 61. And then I worked until probably 67 or 8. I worked Clarice's days off usually, 3 to 11, and then Dr. Hall asked me to come and work for him, and that's when I left and worked 11 years for Dr. Hall.
I did mostly surgery for a long time.
Oh, that's right.
Back then, they told us you're either a school teacher, a nurse,
Right.
or you get married.
Exactly.
And I didn't have anybody to marry. And I didn't want to be a teacher, so I went to be a nurse. But I had worked as a nurse's aide 2 summers when I was in high school. We did a lot of surgery. And Dr. Hall, if Dr. Frigeri was the surgeon, Dr. Hall gave the anesthetic. And if vice versa, once in a while the Dr. Newmans came over from Pittsburgh. But mostly they did their own.
So the general practice physicians would do anesthesia and they did surgery as well.
Ether, it was mostly
Mostly
ether.
drip ether.
Uh-huh.
But we didn't have throwaway syringes. We re-sterilized our syringes for the next shift. Sharpened the needles.
That seems foreign to us now that you actually
yeah.
sharpen needles and reuse them. That was just the
We
way
had a
technology
little
was.
cooker thing that you put distilled water in and just boiled the heck out of them.
You had to do that at the end of your shift. Make sure they're ready for the next shift.
And not everyone got IVs like they do today.
No.
Not everybody that comes in gets an IV, it seems like. But they were few and far between.
Yeah, you had to be pretty ill to.
The doctors had to start them before the nurse came along.
But you had to do it all. There were no physical therapists. There were no respiratory therapists. You just did it all.
And the patients stayed longer. Didn't
Oh,
they?
yeah.
It seemed
Oh,
like
yeah.
If
They
you
They
had,
could stay a long
There was
time.
no in and out.
If they had a broken hip, they were there a long time.
We sandbagged them and they were there till it was almost healed.
So give you an idea of the change. Now the mom and the dad and the grandma and Aunt Susie and half of the family can be in the room. Well, when we delivered babies in the old hospital back in the 60s, the baby was born, and when you took the baby in for the first time to see the mama, you had to clear the room. Not even the daddy could be in the room. I started at the old hospital right out of nurses training. I graduated in July and started right after I got married in November.
So who were the doctors then that you worked
Oh,
with?
let's see. Well, Dr. Lightfoot was here. He was the main one. And Dr. Frigeri was here.
Dunlap.
And Dr.
Dunlap.
Dunlap, but he was pretty well retiring at that time. I mean, he was just finishing up, I think.
I think he was just there barely
Yeah,
after I started.
yeah.
Dr. Hull mentioned about the 2 sets of twins in that one night, and I was working in Gertie. And we have a picture, and I've still got the picture somewhere of Gertie holding 2 of the twins, and I had the other 2. And our picture was in the paper.
Oh, my.
So
That was a pretty busy night to
yeah,
have
that
2
was
sets
that
of
was
twins.
real unusual.
And Dr. Hall delivered both
Mhm.
sets. Yeah.
And of course, that was the days before sonograms, so I remember working one afternoon and we had one, and Dr. Fajeri said, "Oh, my land, Bev, there's another one there." Because all they used was a fetoscope to listen.
I remember Dr. Hall coming on his tractor one night when the snow was real deep.
Oh, my.
How many would do that?
And he made house calls.
I remember helping Dr. Fajeri deliver a baby one. It was on Father's Day afternoon, and they called, and one of the aides came running up and said they're bringing in a child that had fallen off a tractor and bringing them in. And so we were delivering this baby, and then we heard them come in, and so doctor said, "Well, Bev, I'll go down and see what's going on. You know, I think you got a few minutes here before we deliver this baby." So he went down, and then he came up, and we finished delivering the baby. But yeah, you sometime were left thinking, well, we might have to deliver this baby or whatever.
Girard wouldn't be what it is today if it hadn't have been for people like Barbara Lohmeyer.
I think Barbara Lohmeyer did a lot as far as getting the signatures on the petitions. I know there had to be a certain number of signatures in every section of the
She was
area
good.
to get the district.
Yeah.
Good in about everything.
She was an excellent nurse, but she was also a wonderful businesswoman. You know,
And a good friend, too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think it'd be what it is today, but
No.
she had her talent.
And I think you could interview a dozen doctors, and they'd all say the same thing about Barbara. You know, that she ran a tight ship.
Yeah, I was going to say she ran a tight ship, but she's very good.
And she was not only the administrator, but she was an RN
Yes.
first and foremost.
And she was head nurse, more or less.
She did
for-
X-ray and lab, I think.
Yeah.
If
She
she had
pretty
never
much-
done it before, she figured out how.
And she worked 24/7 because you might have to call her in the night or the evening, and she was
I
right there.
did more than once.
Uh-huh.
I've often heard Barbara Lohmeyer say that she never had a family and she never had children, but she considered the hospital her family. And I think that
Definitely was.
really showed in her work ethic, because she spent a lot of time out here, didn't she?
And I always admired the fact that she knew every patient. I mean, she made rounds and talked to every patient and knew everything that was going on with them both at home and in the hospital. I mean, she made an point to good morning everybody or good evening or whatever.
You know, it was me and one aide, and that was it at night, you know. And so there were a lot of times I did have to call Barbara to come and bail me out or help me out. And Dr. Hall and Dr. Fajeri, you know, if you called them, they were always real pleasant and good and helpful.
In 1965, the Hospital District No. 1 of Crawford County Board of Trustees campaigned to build a new hospital. $555,000 bond was voted on in July 1967, and shortly thereafter construction began, and Hospital District No. 1 of Crawford County began doing business as Girard Medical Center in 2007. The Hospital Board of Trustees embarked on a second major renovation and construction project in 2008 in order to accommodate the growing healthcare needs of Southeast Kansas. This project added 30,000 new square feet to the facility and renovated 12,000 square feet of the existing hospital. The expansion created 12 private patient rooms, 4 private ICU rooms, expanded the therapy departments and nursing facilities, and added a new front entrance and lobby. The project included a brand new surgery center equipped with the latest technology. The new facility was open to the public on June 5th, 2010. I think that's been a blessing too about this community, is there are people that work at the hospital and stay for a long time. And we're still blessed with that people, you know, have a long tenure here.
And I think that speaks well for for this or for your administration at this new, I call it the new hospital compared to the old hospital, because people do stay and you have long tenure.
It's a good place to work, for sure.
It's pretty rare in a small town to have this nice a hospital, I think, isn't it?
I think it is
Yes.
too.
Yeah.
I think it is too.
Happy birthday, Girard Medical Center.